All right, so we are picking up on a line, let's see, where are we? 272 at Raptatus. We got through the first four or so lines of this section in class on Friday. We're in this part of the story where the ghost of Hector appears to Aeneas in a dream and says, "You must get out of the city now. The city is lost. There's nothing else you can do. Save yourself and anyone else you can." So we started these first four lines. At the very end, we had most sad Hector seemed to me to be present or to be there, and seemed to me to pour out large tears or many tears. And that's where we start. So we're picking up at Raptatus right here. Raptatus is a perfect passive participle, meaning having been seized or having been dragged. Dragged will probably make best sense in this context. So it's masculine, singular, nominative, referring back to Hector. So Hector, having been dragged, biggies. Biggies is a great word. It's an ablative plural, and it refers to a two-wheeled chariot, particularly a Greek two-wheeled chariot. So having been dragged by the two wheels of Achilles' chariot. So remember that Achilles kills Hector, attaches him to the back of his chariot, and goes riding around the city, around the Trojan walls with Hector off the back of it, which is really sacrilegious and a terrible thing to do in ancient society. So, having been dragged by the two-wheeled chariots, ut. Now notice, we don't have a full clause. We don't have any subjunctive verbs. So it's not a subjunctive clause. If you have ut not in a subjunctive clause, it's just an adverb that means as. And quondam means ever. So as ever, or as he ever was. So once Hector died, from that point onward, he was basically in this perpetual state of having been dragged around the walls of the city. So having been dragged by the two-wheeled chariots as he ever was. And ater, black, also still referring back to Hector. We're going to have a lot of things referring back to Hector, so keep that in mind. And black with dust, with cruento dust, with cruel or bloody. So black with bloody dust. This is also an ablative of cause, like we had in class on Friday. So he is black because of the bloody dust. Why else would he be black? So it's an ablative of cause. The best way to think about ablative of cause is if you translate it as because of. So black because of the bloody dust. And triactus, another participle going off of Hector. So having pierced his sandals, Laura, are just sandals, a lot like flip-flops. So there would be a one connection from the sole that goes over your foot in between your toes. So just like normal modern day flip-flops. So having pierced his sandals through his swollen feet. So his feet are swollen because they've been dragged by a chariot around the walls of a city, hitting things. And what will happen to a human body is that it will swell. And it was swollen to such an extent that the sandals pierced through his feet, which is a pretty gruesome image. So having pierced the sandals through his swollen feet. Now, we get into this aside. This whole thing, the next three lines are an aside, and we're actually going to come back to the rest of this sentence. We haven't finished the sentence yet, but now we get Aeneas's voice coming through as he's talking to Dido. Ei! It's the same thing as ehu. Alas, to me, such he was, or alas, he was such to me. Or he seemed, you can even say he seemed as such to me. Alas, to me, he seemed such. Having been changed, mutatus, another participle going off of Hector, having been changed to such an extent from that Hector who returned, having worn the spoils of Achilles. So Aeneas remembers a certain Hector, a strong Hector, the prince of the city, who defeated Achilles in battle and wore his armor. So, alas, he seemed as such to me, having been changed so much to such an extent from that Hector who returned having worn the spoils of Achilles, or returned having tossed the Phrygian or the Trojan fires to the ships of the Greeks, or to the Greek ships. So, this great Hector, who defeated Achilles in battle, who returned having worn the spoils of Achilles, or having tossed the Trojan fires to the ships of the Greeks. So, at one point in time, Not only did Hector defeat Achilles and was wearing his armor, but he also lit a bunch of Greek ships on fire. So very, very strong. Notice we have pupibus, which is a dative of direction. Don't get thrown off by that. It basically just means ad plus the noun and the accusative. So if you said ad pupes, to the ships, that's exactly the same thing as a dative of direction, to the ships or toward the ships. Either way is fine. So this whole darn thing is a big aside, Aeneas' own voice talking to Dido, being like, he was so different, he used to be so great, and now he is so changed from that Hector that I knew. And then we come back to our previous sentence where we were saying that he appeared with his sandals piercing through his feet and black with the bloody dust. He appeared gerens, another participle modifying Hector, wearing or having, either way works. So having a squalid beard or a dirty beard, and wearing or having hair made hard or having been made hard with blood, and illa vulnera, those wounds quae, those wounds which, plurima is in apposition with the wounds, so those wounds which, very many, he received around the walls of the fatherland. Patrios is an adjective meaning pertaining to the fatherland or of the fatherland. So it is an adjective, but treat it just like a genitive. So which very many he received around the walls of the fatherland, these wounds that he got after he had even died when he was being dragged around the walls. All right. Ipse. Ipse means himself, herself, or itself, but it always refers back to our subject. So what is our subject here? I, because we've got with a bar, the R ending of your normal first person singular. I seemed, or I was seeming. It's passive, right? So I myself crying all the more. Ultro is just an adverb meaning even more or all the more. So I myself crying all the more seemed compellare to address the man and seemed expromere to pour out. Promere is to pour, ex is out. So seemed to pour out sad voices. Now, voices here is our metonymy, which we have right there. La la la. Because voices is an odd thing to say. He really means words. So we're using the word voices to mean words. He poured out sad words. We also have this ascending tricolon, which I didn't mention. It's the three different things that Hector was having. He was having a dirty beard, which is not great, but not the end of the world. He had hair hard with blood. That's not something that should ever happen. That's not great. Certainly worse than a dirty beard. And he had those wounds, which very many he received around the walls of the fatherland. Number one, a lot longer than the previous two, so the ascending tricolon is growing in length and it's growing in intensity. A dirty beard is a lot less intense than hair hard with blood, which is a lot less intense than wounds. Many, many wounds, plurima wounds, which he received as he was dragged around the walls of the fatherland. So, those are the beginning lines of this speech that we get into with Aeneas. These are your lines for Monday. O lux Dardanii, O light of the Dardanians, which we'll start in on Monday. But it's the setup for this scene where Hector tells Aeneas to run away fast. So that's it. Let me know what you think about this medium as opposed to just me sending you the schema notes. I'm a big fan of this video thing. I'm really jazzed by it, but let me know what you think. And I will see you all on Monday. Also, please take note of any questions you have on this section that we just went through, because we'll be going over any questions that you have on Tuesday. So write them down because you won't remember any questions you have right now come class time on Tuesday. So have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Monday.